for a couple of reasons. One is because a lot of people were really happy when Barack Obama was elected, and they want to believe that he's a good man who's a constitutional lawyer, and he wouldn't be doing these terribly bad things. I mean, it's true. A lot of people just don't want to believe that Barack Obama would be unleashing an attack on people that would kill a lot of innocent civilians. And because, as I said, our media calls all these people that we kill innocents, and because we don't see pictures of dead children, terrorists, what did I say?
Innocent.
Oh,
Because that's what they are.
Right. They label them militants, combatants, evil people, the enemy. We don't see the pictures of dead children. A lot of people just believe the administration is doing a good job keeping us safe. The other thing is that the media until recently hasn't talked about this drone program. So American people really don't know much about it. I'm sure the vast majority of people could never tell you how many drone strikes we've unleashed, an estimate of how many people who have been getting killed. They have been told that it's a precise weapon that could pick out in the crowd that man over there who has a beard and looks a little suspicious. He's the one we're going to get, and we're not going to touch anybody else around here. Now, we in this room might be a little more sophisticated than that and recognize that just doesn't happen. But when you don't hear that children were killed, when you don't hear that the wife and the kids were killed when they tried to go after an individual, when you hear that number 2 in Al-Qaeda was killed, there's a sigh of relief among a lot of American people, not realizing that number 3 then becomes number 2, and then number 4 becomes number 3, and then not realizing that you've created, that there were perhaps in that one drone strike alone, 30 other people who were killed, and who knows how many of them were innocent, and not knowing that there had already been a dozen other attempts to get that one person, and that perhaps 200 people were killed in those attempts, many, if not most of them, innocent people. So it's sold to Americans as precise. It's also sold to Americans as a way that keeps our boys safe, and Americans don't want our soldiers dying. I mean, nobody wants their soldiers dying. It's also sold to the American people as being cheap. This is a cheap way to wage war. We won't need boots on the ground. We won't need expensive F-16s. You can buy a Predator or Reaper drone for $10 million, which is nothing given the size of our military. The cheapness I talk about in the book, that is also a faulty bill of goods that we've been sold, because these drones are crashing all the time. The Air Force admits that a third of their drones have crashed, and I don't know if you followed last week in Maryland, a big Global Hawk drone crashed that was worth $176 million, that one drone. And the drones, the technology is still being worked out. So a lot of them, they say they go rogue, they just start flying in the wrong direction. And you might remember when the Iranians put on full display to the world to see a very sophisticated spy drone that they said they hacked into the U.S. computer system and downed that drone without a scratch on it, and then went ahead and replicated that drone. So there are many reasons, I think, why the American people think that this is a cheap, precise, easy way of waging war. It reminds me of the words of the counterterrorism chief for the Obama administration, John Brennan, who said last year we hadn't killed one civilian with our drones, and said that the use of drones is wise, precise, and just.
So one of the strengths of the book is that you're not just sitting in Washington thinking about this, but you actually get around, and the book describes personal encounters and so forth. Do you want to share some of those?
Well, some of my personal Afghanistan, went in through Pakistan, and on the border of Peshawar started meeting streams of refugees who were coming over, and refugees whose homes had been attacked. Met a young girl, 13 years old, her name was Roya, met her in the streets begging in Peshawar, and with an interpreter we asked her if she could tell her story, and she took us to the mud hut that she was living in. It turns out that she had lived near a Taliban compound, that our precise weapons weren't so precise, and instead they hit her compound while her mother was in the house with her brothers and sisters. She was out, and her father was out. When they came home, they saw the pieces of flesh that were in the trees about near her house. That was all that was left of her mother and her two brothers and sisters. Her father was so shocked when he saw that, that he picked up the pieces of flesh, buried them, prayed, and then never spoke again. And this girl became the head of her household, having to take her mute father and her other two brothers and sisters, walking for days on end with no food, no money, making their way into Pakistan and trying to survive by begging on the streets of a very, very poor city full of other refugees. And that was my introduction to the precision of our weapons. And I realized that over the years that we have killed so many more innocent people than were killed on 9/11, and that we now have the spillover of the war in Afghanistan, in Pakistan. And I talk about an example in the book of a young man called Tariq Aziz, who was 16 years old. He had seen his cousin be killed in a drone strike in Pakistan. And he was so distraught by it that he considered doing what most people do when one of their loved ones is killed by a drone strike, which is take up weapons. But he was given another option, and that was to go into the capital of Pakistan in Islamabad and have a meeting with other families who had lost loved ones or who had been maimed by a drone strike, and talk with lawyers from the United Kingdom as well as Pakistani lawyers. And a woman in the United Kingdom had provided video cameras and still cameras asking these people to go back to their villages and document the drone strikes so we could get more information out to the world community about what is happening. And he was very excited that he got this training, went back into the village. 2 days later, was out in a car, and no one who was at that meeting would have believed that the first documentation to be done after that meeting was the drone strike that killed the 16-year-old Tariq Aziz and his young cousin. And as I explain in the book, these weapons are terrorizing villages who hear the buzzing of the drones constantly, live in constant fear, never know when a Hellfire missile is going to be launched and who it's going to kill. So yes, I've had a number of personal experiences and now work with the lawyer who is a very interesting man. He was a corporate lawyer in Pakistan. He's Pakistani. He was used to work with the Agency for International Development in the United States. He also collaborated with the FBI on an issue about terrorism in Pakistan, but he started reading about the drone strikes and decided that he was going to go talk to some of the victims' families, and realized that he had to do something about it personally, gave up his other clients and started working for free for drone victims. And we are now working with him, and he has invited us to come to Pakistan, which we are going to do the first week in October, and try to have the first ever march that goes to northern Pakistan, into the area where journalists are not allowed to go, where no Americans have tread. And we're going to try to go there to say it is time to end the violence, to stop the drone strikes, to show that we as Americans care about their lives just as we care about the lives of our own sons and daughters here at home. And if anybody's interested in finding out more and maybe joining us on this delegation, you can leave your name